NASCAR at Kansas, contact on the final lap and contact on pit road after the race gets everyone talking and taking sides. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove on the Road. I am in New Orleans today. Big family event. That's why I'm not in my usual studio, but I just got done watching the Kansas NASCAR Cup Series race. And boy, am I glad I didn't miss this one. Race of the year, in my opinion. Two great friends off the track, but great rivals on the track do battle one-on-one mano a mano. Contact at the very end settles this race. We'll discuss who's in the right, who's in the wrong, if there even are sides to be taken in just a few moments. But we have to begin this episode with the fight. Thanks, Ross, for giving us yet another controversy to talk about. He can't go 1 week without being part of the story. Today, he frustrated Kyle Busch, who doored Chastain, saying, hey, that's your warning. He was involved in the Christopher Bell wreck, but I don't think that was really his fault. He got a little tight, yes, but then Bell, trying to side draft, trying to cut low, misjudged it, made contact, wrecked himself. But he was also involved in an incident with Noah Gragson, where Chastain, middle three wide, got tight, washed up the track, kind of ran Noah out of room, who then scraped the outside wall. A few laps later, Noah Gragson cut a tire. His race was effectively ruined. That was Ross Chastain's fault. Not an egregious move, but it was Ross making a mistake, and it cost Noah. Noah, with his still fresh bowl cut, decides to confront Ross Chastain on pit road after the race, and he kind of grabs Ross. They're talking. Noah reaches out, grabs him kind of by the collar, by the chest. Ross Chastain, I didn't think he was a fighter, but he did not like that. He takes a swing, lands a punch, a vicious right hook. Thought he was going to knock that new haircut clean off Noah's head. Noah trying to swing back, but then this dude steps in the middle, breaks up really fast. The fight kind of ends there. Once again, we have a case of Ross Chastain making a mistake on the racetrack, which he did. He admitted himself after the race that, yeah, he got washed up the racetrack, squeezed Noah into the fence a little. Ross makes a mistake on the racetrack. The driver who he wronged tries to retaliate, and Ross Chastain still comes out ahead. This time, someone actually got physical with Ross, got in his face, and Ross is the one who landed a punch. Noah never got a chance because, again, that big dude got in there real fast, broke things up. I wish he would have waited a few more seconds, give Noah at least a chance to retaliate, because that was kind of a sucker punch. It was a cheap shot there from Ross. I'm not a fighter, if you couldn't tell. I've not been in many or any fights, but they're talking. I know he's got his hand. I know Noah's got his hands on Ross, and I wouldn't like that. If someone had their hands on me, I would not react positively. But to suddenly throw a punch, it is kind of a cheap shot. You got to at least give Noah a chance to swing back, but the surrounding personnel did not. Anyway, that's my reaction. This is yet another example of Ross doing something wrong on the track, and when the person he wronged tries to get him back, whether it's with their race car, whether it's a physical altercation, Ross still comes out on top. When is someone finally going to teach Ross Chastain a lesson? It has not happened yet. I don't know what strategy you throw at him now. Anyway, unfortunately, FS1's post-race show was cut quite short. They ran over their broadcast window, had to cut to their ever so precious USFL football, so we didn't get Noah's side of the altercation, but I don't know. Noah was right to be frustrated. I have no issue with Noah going up and confronting Chastain. In fact, I applaud that. Someone has to. Putting his hands on him, yeah, I guess you're asking for a fight, but I wish Noah had gotten a chance to retaliate, and he wasn't given one. So it's kind of a lame fight, in my opinion. Another case of Ross Chastain coming out on top. That was the off-track contact after the race that got everyone talking. Now let's talk about the on-track contact, because this was the race of the year, and in many ways, I think probably the finish of the year. Two great friends, Larson, Denny, Hamlin, who've already put on great shows when battling one-on-one. Remember Darlington, the Southern 500 a couple of years ago? Great racing for the win. Larson trying that outside, kind of the prototype wall ride move that Chastain then made famous. Hamlin managed to block it. Great finish, exciting stuff. It came down to the 5 and the 11 once more. Larson already with 2 wins this year, but it's been a very up and down season. If he's not winning, he's often wrecked out, usually by someone else's doing. Denny Hamlin's been very consistent lately. Toyota, especially on the long runs, really fast today, but Denny had not won a race in nearly a year, going back to last season's Coke 600. A couple of hungry drivers, but with very different recent results. Denny Hamlin was faster than Kyle Larson in those closing laps. He was able to pass William Byron with about 26 laps to go and immediately began to eat into Larson's lead. But late in the run, That far outside line up against the wall was the dominant lane, and with the amount of dirty air, the wake these cars create, you can't really follow someone exactly in their lane and hope to catch them. You gotta start trying lower lanes, less preferred lanes to try and eat into that lead. Hamlin got close a few times. He was able to use lap traffic a couple of times to get door to door with Larson. Raced him very hard, but very cleanly for many, many laps. The white flag waved. Hamlin had one more shot, and this time he got a little greedy. Really tight racing up off of turn 2. I don't know if Hamlin gave Larson a ton of room. Larson was battling a loose condition, maybe just scraped the wall a little on his own. Then they come together. Larson kind of gets pushed into the wall. What a save by Larson. I don't know if this counts as a save, but the fact that he held on to second place when his car was almost at a 90-degree angle, nose first into the outside wall in the last lap, I mean, that's impressive. That's a wheelman. You know, Kyle Larson's never going to quit on the last lap. He's shown that numerous times. Remember the Roval back in like 2019, 2018? Something like that. But Denny Hamlin goes on to get the win. The crowd there at Kansas very loudly booed Hamlin. There were some cheers, but the boos, I think, outweighed the cheers, so they didn't like the way that last lap played out. From my perspective, it's tough. I definitely think Hamlin was the instigator, or he initiated the contact. He was the aggressor. Let's put it that way. He was the aggressor in this situation. He was better than Larson. He'd raced him clean for 20 laps. I don't blame him for getting a little greedy, but you don't want to run a guy into the wall for the win. Nobody does. It's not the best way to win a race. I think even Hamlin would admit that. And Hamlin did say during his front stretch interview after the race that he was just trying to side draft Larson and kind of got his left rear. So the way Hamlin made it sound is, yeah, he made a slight misjudgment, slight mistake, over-aggressive. It's his fault Larson went into the wall, and he's probably right. Larson didn't seem too upset after the race. Again, it was very hard racing. Hamlin was clearly better at the end. You hate to lose a race that way. If Hamlin and Larson weren't good friends off the racetrack, I'm not sure, maybe the reaction would have been a little different. It's hard for me to come down on one side or the other. I think, yes, Hamlin was largely responsible for Larson getting into the wall, but I mean, we hear fans say this all the time. Last lap, you're going for a win. Hamlin hasn't won in almost a year. A lot of fans seem to believe that just about anything goes, and he didn't wreck Larson. Larson still finished second. If we're adhering by the modern day philosophy that you gotta do what you gotta do to win a race, then I'm not sure Denny Hamlin did anything wrong. But I've always preferred clean racing, so in that case, I think Denny Hamlin certainly overstepped just a tiny bit. Last lap of the race, where do you come down? Was Hamlin clearly in the wrong, or is it just hard racing for the win? Let me know down in the comment section below. I don't even know where to go next. This race was so topsy-turvy. Drivers like William Byron started on pole, but tagged the wall early on, then sped on pit road, then I think tagged the wall again, was multiple laps down, but grinded his way into the top 5 late. Kyle Busch sped on pit road yet again, but rallied to once again be running inside the top 5, then was shuffled back due to strategy on a restart and spun, wrecked out. Drivers like Eric Almirola spun, but rallied to, I think, run up inside the top 10, top 15 late. Christopher Bell, though, spun and hit the inside wall hard enough that his day was over. Ty Gibbs, another really solid race from the rookie until he lost the handle underneath his teammate Martin Truex Jr., spun out, mostly kept it off the wall, really impressive, but destroyed the right front. Just tire blew up when trying to nurse it back to pit road, so he was out of the race despite having a decent run. So many storylines to keep up with. It's going to be impossible to track them all in this video. Well, okay, it's not impossible, but I'm not going to do it. I'd be here all night, and I gotta at least take some advantage of being in the Big Easy on the weekend. Let's look at the top finishers, and I don't mean to gloss over Denny Hamlin. Obviously, we talked about the controversy on the last lap, but in the now record book, Denny Hamlin is the winner today. How does this affect his season? He gets a win. That's huge. Hamlin had shown a lot of speed lately, but for whatever reason, the finishes often didn't quite reflect that. Today, they were able to put together a full race. They got the long run at the end that they needed. I think it was clear Hamlin's car was much better on the long run than it was the short run. It was competitive on the short run, but long run, Hamlin was the class of the field. He got that long run at the end, and more or less he executed. Hamlin on his podcast, at least the last few weeks, has been sort of suggesting that, hey, the 11 team's about to go on a run. He feels really confident, feels like they found something. They've got good tracks coming up, or that we've been to. And yeah, Hamlin's been faster lately. Toyota as a whole's been faster lately. We talked about Dover last week, how good Toyota was. Today, once again, it was a number of Toyotas up front. Denny Hamlin today was the best of them. Finishing second, Kyle Larson. We've been over it. I'm not going to rattle through the races yet again, but we're, 12 races in? And Larson's got 2 wins, but he could easily have 5, maybe 6. He's been right there. If he's not right there contending for the win on the last lap, he's probably already wrecked out. It has been all or nothing for Larson, but what he does have a lot of is speed, week in, week out, regardless of venue. William Byron, I mentioned his recovery to finish third. Very, very impressive. Took advantage of that number 1 pit box as well. He won the pole yesterday. That's huge. Took advantage of it to gain several spots on a couple of key pit road cycles. Bubba Wallace, who won here last fall, once again very fast. Both 2311 cars were top 5, top 10 threats all day long. Tyler Reddick was my pick. He was a small disappointment to me. He kind of faded as the race went on. He went from being like a top 5 car to like a 10th place car. You see, he still got a decent finish, but I expected more from Reddick. Bubba Wallace, though, ran about exactly as I expected. Top 5 almost all day, kind of like Denny Hamlin and the other Toyotas. He seemed to be a little better on the long run. I already mentioned Ross Chastain. He finishes 5th. More drama. Chastain wins on the racetrack, and because of how that fight played out, he also won off the racetrack. Nobody's been able to teach him a lesson yet. He keeps getting away with it. Joey Logano, the best finishing Ford. Ford was virtually irrelevant today. I'm sorry. I mean, you had your usual suspects. Logano. Blaney was occasionally in the top 10. Harvick was occasionally in the top 10, but they were never threats to win. They didn't really crack the top 5, I think, ever. I mean, Logano did win stage 2 thanks to some variable pit strategy. So, I mean, it was kind of fluky. He did win a stage. Good for him. Chase Elliott, maybe his best race since returning from injury, gets a solid 7th. Truex, kind of like Tyler Reddick, looked to be one of the best cars early in the race, top 5 for sure, and then kind of faltered a little. He ends up with a solid top 10 finish, but I thought he was going to be a contender for the win based on how the first stage kind of played out. Austin Dillon comes home with a much-needed top 10 finish. There's Kevin Harvick. Ricky Stenhouse was up in the top 15 almost all day, so good for him. Continues to put together just solid race after solid race. That Daytona 500 win, I mean, yeah, he's probably not going to win another race this year, but to say that was a total fluke, I think is unfair to that team, how good they've been, how consistently decent they've been this year, which for JTG, that's a huge accomplishment. I mentioned Almirola, AJ Allmendinger. I feel like we haven't said his name much at all this year. Decent finishes for them. I mentioned a lot of the drivers who had issues. Bell, Busch, the sun has come out. Chase Briscoe, want to mention him because he finished 32nd, and I didn't see, did something happen? Did something break? Or were they just hellaciously slow yet again? He's had that streak of 3 straight top 5 finishes, but whether it's been Briscoe or a different SHR car, it feels like every week one of them just fires off terribly, like worse than the Rick Ware cars, worse than Live Fast. They just run 35th in stage 1. I swear, almost every week it feels like one SHR car fits that description. This week it was Chase Briscoe. You just can't have that. You're supposed to be a super team. You can't have someone fire off with 30th place speed every other week. That just can't happen. I also want to mention Josh Berry, who filled in for Alex Bowman yet again. He finishes 25th. He was running up in the top 15, looked pretty good. I think even at one point he was top 10. Gained spots from his qualifying position. Looking good. And then he kind of got tight, slid up into Ty Gibbs, got clipped, spun himself around. And then, I don't remember if he had another issue or what happened, but ultimately at that point, Josh Berry was no longer a factor. But he was doing really well before then. Just a small mistake cost him. But those are your top finishers from Kansas today. Lastly, and I'm going to do this fairly quick because I don't have anything really bad to say, but let's put this race on the Groovy gauge. I'm going to go with a 93% on the Groovy gauge for this race. Fantastic race. It came down to the wire. 2 veterans, 2 championship caliber drivers. I had to choose my words carefully there. Denny Hamlin hasn't won a championship, but he's almost always in the conversation. 2 great drivers, battling hard, left it all on the racetrack. Maybe some hurt feelings between the two as well. Something to watch going forward. But fantastic race. Had some dry moments where they got really strung out. Also simultaneously had a few moments where it was like 5 laps, caution for a spin. 5 laps, caution for a spin, where the pacing just ground to a halt, especially around the start of stage 3. So that's why I can't go 95 or 100%, but 93% I think is the best score I've given a race this season. For me so far, this is race of the year. This was a fantastic show with several all-time classic moments we'll be replaying probably years from now. But let me know what you think down in the comment section below. I also want to give a small shout out to Fox. They had issues like not having a great replay of the Bell Chastain spin until much, much later, but I'll give them credit. I don't think they played a single commercial break, not even a side-by-side for the final like 40, 50 laps of this race. I'm sure with all the cautions they'd already burned through the commercials, but it was still great to have those final 40 intense green flag laps go by uninterrupted. It was a nice change of pace for sure. One of the perks of having these races on cable, where folks' cable subscriptions are helping fund the broadcast as opposed to solely commercials. It's just something to think about. Anyway, with that being said, I don't think I have much else. Great race today. Dramatic finish, lots of controversy, but like fun on-track controversy. Is Gragson's reaction justified to Chastain pinching him? Should Chastain have thrown a punch? Hamlin versus Larson. Did Hamlin push the envelope too far? He's the one standing in victory lane. Be curious to see where you come down on that. Thank you so much for watching this video, y'all. That's all I've got. If you enjoyed, please leave this episode a like. We talk NASCAR news, rumors, we react to races almost every single day here on this channel. I've been uploading a fun variety of other videos in recent days as well. Thank you to my Patreon supporters for your very generous support. Next time you see me, I'll be back in town. If you missed it though, check out my video I did at the North Carolina Auto Racing Hall of Fame, also the NASCAR Hall of Fame. I've been exploring the NASCAR countryside the past few weeks. Got a lot of videos in the works coming out soon. Thanks so much for watching, y'all. I'll see you in the next episode.